Hello, I'm on a little bicycle ride, and it's a nice cloudy day because we are going through some kind of a heat wave here at the moment, and today it is still cloudy in the morning, and then in the afternoon it will become very hot again. So I'm taking my chances to go out on a nice little ride to enjoy myself. And here, this is where I am. I'm riding my bicycle here over the levee here. This is some sort of a canal that is a natural spring of the creek that runs through the canyon, and when it is very rainy, the water also streams down this canal. I was just a little bit further back, closer to my house. There were all these hundreds and hundreds of little frogs there. And so it's teeming with life, this canal, although it looks kind of dry right now. And of course it all dries up. It all dries up in the summer. But there's still little puddles here and there. And these are perfect pools for little frogs. And these little frogs, they like these areas. Anyway, I've also just listened while I was riding my bicycle. I've listened to a beautiful recording of my dear Dutch friend Annemiek, and she speaks in Dutch. If you want to listen to her recordings, her videos on YouTube, it is called hi it's called Luisterend Spreken. Luisterend Spreken, that's Dutch, that means listening while you speak. And Luisterend Spreken is her YouTube channel. And she speaks so beautifully about our conversation that we had. Oh my goodness, I just love it, Annemiek. Thank you. I feel so happy. And I also want to talk in Dutch, but at the same time, I want as many people as possible to understand this. So that's why I talk in English. I'll talk in Dutch again some other time. But for now, I just want people to see and hear my excitement of being here on this wonderful cool day before we are being slammed by the famous heat, which is really one of those things that people who live in Chico, they all know that, because you can't do much of anything once the heat is here. except of course stay inside in an air-conditioned place and go for walks in the early morning when it is still cool. That's nice. Anyway, I want to also make a few comments on what I heard Annemiek speak about, which is so incredibly important and which hasn't been properly addressed, or at least it has been addressed, but maybe we can even address it further, we can address it more, elaborately. And I cannot stop addressing it again and again in as many ways as I'm capable of, because that's what I like to do. And so what am I talking about? I'm talking about, of course, embodied language. I'm talking about the way of speaking in which we listen to ourselves while we talk. That's what I do. Yeah. And so this way of speaking, listening to yourself while you speak, Annemiek, her YouTube channel is called Luisterend Spreken. That means listening while you speak. When you listen to yourself while you speak, you basically find yourself back. That's what Annemiek said, and I just love the way she just put that, because that's really what it is. You finally come back to your senses. You finally realize, wow, I need my language to find myself back. My own language. And of course, your own language is only true to the extent that you feel totally at ease with it. your own language is only working for you, is only benefiting you, is only meaningful to you to the extent that you are able to understand yourself, to the extent that you are able to enjoy yourself, to the extent that you feel free. Annemiek also mentioned that. She said, yeah, this is freedom. Yes, this is freedom. There is no other way to have freedom than with your embodied language. And yet, I know for a fact, I've lived for 65 years. I know for a fact people are not interested in it. You may hear me talk about it. You may hear Annemiek talk about it. You may read my blog or her blog. My blog is called Sound Verbal Behavior. And her blog is called... what's a new blog again called? I forget. She has a new blog. It's called Bevrijdend Spreken. Speaking from Liberty or something like that. Anyways, she has her own blog. And on blogspot.com, Anna Klomp. And anyways, you can find it if you look for it. It's all there. And embodied language is the language of freedom. And there is no freedom without embodied language. So with disembodied language, which is our usual way of talking, in which we don't listen to ourselves, and in which we remain busy trying to get other people to listen to us, or we are trying to listen to them, but we're not busy with listening to ourselves. Well, in disembodied language, we are not free. We're always struggling. There's always a problem. We're always tense. We're always caught up with something. Something is always demanding our attention. Yeah. And in embodied language, oddly enough, yeah, because in embodied language, we give attention to whatever asks our attention. And we find out that once we begin to express in our own words, in our own way, what we experience, then we liberate ourselves. So even those things are coming into our attention in embodied language, it always just disappears, it always dissolves, it always liberates us to talk about that. It's just beautiful how that is. And we can have embodied language instead of disembodied language. And then when we have that, yeah, we feel so happy, just like me here, and just like that happy dog that is running running along the path there. I am so happy to just be here on my bicycle here. This is my wife's bicycle actually, but she never rides it. And so I'm riding her bicycle. And I am not going very fast, you know, I'm just riding it for the fun of it. I don't need to, I don't know, win a match. I'm simply riding because it's so nice and cool weather right now. And I'm still enjoying the cool weather as long as it lasts. Yeah. So here I'm going over a bridge. Here, this is another part of the diversion channel which runs through this part runs through town. Yeah, you can see it's also not streaming anymore. Oh, it's still streaming a little bit. Yeah, but pretty soon it will be dried up because during the summer it is no longer full of water. But right now we're just a couple of weeks, or just a couple of weeks away, a week or so away from the incredible rain that we've had, which is good. I'm so glad that we had rain because the lakes have been filled up, and yeah, our environment needs the rain, you know, for things to grow. And yeah, I'm happy to see everything green because in the summertime everything turns yellow here because it's so bloody hot. Unless, of course, like here, this is a sports field. It's called Hoover Oak Park. This is where they play baseball and stuff like that, you know. Yeah, I am also incredibly happy with Annemiek's remark about our conversation, because our conversation is just so good. And anybody who is going to have conversation with me or with her is going to experience that, wow, this is what you have been missing. You've been missing embodied language, and once you have it, you can't miss it, because it is just such a good feeling. It's such a good experience, such a tangible experience. It's not anything, fantasized. You have a different way of using your language in embodied language, because you hear yourself while you speak. And so you are connected with what you say. And that is just so beautiful, that you feel this connection, and that this connection continues, and that in continuing that connection, in continuing your embodied language, you experience your language enlightenment, which is who you have always been. But who you've always been, but for who you never really had the right way of talking. And as you can tell, when you have that, when you continue with that, hello, then you will notice that you don't want to stop. You just want to continue with it because it feels so good. And something else. Oh yeah. There's I'm passing by another part of the creek here. This is the creek that runs through Chico here that we're now passing. This is the main stream of the creek here. Yeah. Isn't that wonderful? Oh yeah. And so this is the creek that runs through my town, my hometown, Chico. I'm so happy to live here. I feel so fortunate. But what I wanted to say about the stream of embodied language, because there's something to say about that continuation of your embodied language. It makes everything clear that wasn't clear. It truly lets you know that you need your embodied language to be rational. You need your embodied language to understand yourself. With disembodied language, you just completely misunderstand who you are. You cannot be yourself because you don't understand yourself. And you don't have energy also in disembodied language. So that's another thing. In embodied language, you're full of energy. You are delighted. You are so happy. And that's not because you are hypnotizing yourself. This is not because you are just fantasizing about something. No, it is because you truly let yourself know that this way of dealing with language, which is your embodied language, this way of dealing with language is entirely different from how you have dealt with language before. Because you have, of course, because of your disembodied language, you have had all these ideas about that you think, that there's language inside of you, and so this idea that there's language inside of you and that there's inner language, so to speak, is completely false. And it sounds kind of absurd initially, when you for the first time hear this. Then you look, people have left some stuff here that's not good. They should take home their things. They even left their goggles there and a t-shirt. But this is a beautiful place to go into the water. I often go and swim here myself, But in any case, what I was saying is that there is no inner language, and that is, as long as you have disembodied language, you have this fantasy about your inner language, about what you supposedly think and what goes on inside of you. But there is no language inside of you. And you come out of this nightmare of inner language, this fantasy about inner language. You basically just completely leave that behind once you begin to have embodied language instead of disembodied language. And it's a huge energy release. Release. where you suddenly feel like you're flooded with energy. Why? Because now you are actually using your language correctly. Yes, yes. So embodied language, where you realize that there is no inner language. You're no longer wasting your time and your energy on this fantasy of inner language. You can fantasize about language all you want, and people have done that. People have created books, they have created movies, they have created stories. People have been fantasizing about language forever. But once you acknowledge the difference between disembodied language and embodied language, then you begin to listen to yourself and you realize there is no inner language. There cannot be any inner language. So the mind that you have been talking about, your mind, that you have inner thoughts, that you have inner conversations with yourself, it just never occurred. It never happened. It was just fantasy. And it was a product, of course, of our usual way of talking, in which we couldn't talk like this. We couldn't talk like this, in which we have embodied language and in which we listen to ourselves. Because when you listen to yourself, you realize there cannot be any inner language. Of course, there is no sentences inside of you. There's no language inside of you, not in your head, not in your body. There never was, and there never could be. You are just talking and you hear yourself. You just listening to yourself while you speak, and you hear something which you want to hear. You hear something which you enjoy saying. And you, as a person who speaks, is the same as the person who listens. So you're one with your speech. You're one with your experience, and your speech, your language, and your experience is one and the same. And so this totality, this you can also say this conscious use of your language, because that's what it is. You use your language consciously. Can only occur if you listen to yourself. If you, again, and of course that happens, everybody is conditioned that way. We're conditioned to listen to others. When I say the word listening, what does that make you think of? Even though thinking doesn't exist. But what do you associate with that word listening? You immediately say listening to others. Nobody's going to say, oh yeah, I listen to myself. No, that would be great if that were true, but it is not so. Most people don't listen to themselves. They don't even realize they don't listen to themselves. And that's why they are continuously trapped in disembodied language. And even if you acknowledge the difference between your embodied language and your disembodied language, even after you have done that, and even after you have sort of felt what I am saying, you have experienced it, then still you're going to have to deal with the fact that, your conditioning history is still pulling on you, And you can only change that conditioning history to the extent that you have talked out loud with yourself and said to yourself, okay, that may be true, but that history is no longer in charge of me. I am free because I listen to myself right now, and I'm stepping out of that history of conditioning. So that's what you do every time you switch from disembodied language to embodied language again. And then, even though you may have to go through that transition many times, it becomes easier and easier over time. And it goes by itself, because you want to have embodied language. You don't want to have disembodied language. You believed perhaps that you wanted to have disembodied language for all sorts of false reasons. But once you begin to have embodied language, you realize like, oh my goodness, I was involved in disembodied language without wanting it, without knowing it. It happened. I was overcome by my own mechanism, by my own conditioning, by my own pattern. And so, okay, so when you listen to yourself again, you talk with yourself again, you are out of that pattern. It's just like that, very easily. No big explanations are needed. You just suddenly hear yourself again. You realize like, oh gosh, I was not listening to myself. I was carried away by what I was saying. I was not busy with myself anymore. I was busy with other people. I was struggling again. Oh my gosh, I was struggling again, and everything was no good, and I needed to change, or other people needed to change. And oh yeah, and then when I listen to myself, I don't even like to hear what I'm saying, because my voice sounds agitated, and I sound frustrated, and I sound dissatisfied. I don't want to hear it. Yeah. Okay, so I change my sound. Not that I'm trying to sound differently, but the moment that I realize that I sound a way that I don't want to sound, I no longer sound that way, because I just stopped myself from, I don't know, being so upset, or being so stressed out, being so worried, being so carried away. So every time I catch myself, or find myself back, I suddenly realize, like, oh my gosh, this is so much better. I hear myself again. Oh yeah, I can talk with myself. I don't need to have this disembodied language with other people, which just keeps on going, and which keeps on setting the stage for all bad things to happen in this world. Yeah, because that's really what it does. Everything that is negative is preceded by disembodied language. And everything that human beings do, all the madness, all the craziness, all the hatefulness, all the destruction, all the brutality, it all has to do with disembodied language. Once we have embodied language, feel this. What is this? What is my embodied language? What is a person's... Have you listened to Annemiek's video? Just look at her, just listen to her. Is such a person like her or like me, are we going to do anything negative or anything harmful? No, we are not. We are in favor of this. We are in favor of understanding. We are in favor of human freedom, freedom of the individual, freedom of expression, freedom of speech, but also freedom to understand ourselves with our own language, with our embodied language, and freedom to put an end to the nightmare of our delusional disembodied language, which created this weird concept of inner language. There is no inner language. There's language in books, yes. There's language on the internet, when you open your account, you can read it. It's there on your screen. There's language there, and there's language when somebody opens their mouth, because then you hear a voice, somebody speaks. So there's something to listen to, but with inner language, there's nothing to listen to. There's nobody who speaks. It's just fantasy. It's just make-believe. And the same is, of course, true for all your religions. When you hear, I don't know, the Holy Ghost, or when you hear, I don't know, God, or whatever you call it, you in your prayers and all your nonsense stuff that you imagine, because you cannot have embodied language. This is a huge topic, that we have all these religions because we cannot have embodied language. We haven't had embodied language. It hasn't happened yet for most people. And so once you have embodied language, there's no need for any of that. There's no need for any of your superstitious nonsense. Yes, and that's what it is. And we should call it that, because it is pure fantasy. And it has, in as much as people, they feel a sense of belonging, they feel a sense like, oh yeah, we're doing the same thing, and there's a need for that, for people to agree with each other, and to behave the same way, to feel that they are not against each other, of course. But based on these religious principles, we are endlessly at war with each other over these religions. We are endlessly at war with each other over our different cultures, over our different habits, which for the most part are just different ways of doing things, and there's no right or wrong about it. People do things in a different way, and if they feel good about it, there's nothing wrong about doing it this or that way. But ultimately, if it is preventing us from having embodied language, and that's what it does, your religion prevents you from having embodied language. Let me repeat that for you, because you probably don't want to acknowledge this. Nobody with religion wants to acknowledge this, but your religion prevents you from using your language to your own advantage. That's really what you should say, because your language is just basically fantasy in disembodied language and with your belief in a higher power or whatever it is, your belief in karma or you believe in being reborn in a different life, all that nonsense, it's just pure nonsense. There's no heaven, there's no hell, no, there's just here your life on earth and your human life. Yeah, if you're lucky, you live, or lucky, I don't know if that's luck, but if you're healthy, or if your constitution is such that you can make it, maybe you live to 100, but maybe not. But your life is ending, and when it's ended, it's ended. There's nothing left. You don't come back. There's nothing there. Yeah, maybe you have offspring and they continue. Yeah. And maybe what you've said is still read by somebody or still, documented on the YouTube channel, and you can still listen to it after they're gone. But there's nothing left of you. You are gone. Yeah. My mother recently died. She's gone and she'll never return. Yeah. And I've known many people who have died, and I'm also going to die. And so we are mortal souls. Yeah, not souls. There's no soul. That's just one of those things that we just talk about soul. There's no soul. There's just you. Yeah, how you are, and that's all there is to you. And no, nothing is hidden. There's no unconscious. There's only the stuff that you haven't talked about. That's what we call unconscious. But once you say what you want to say, there's nothing left. There's nothing inside of you. It's all just nonsense that you have believed in, and that you have also maintained with your superstitious beliefs. So, okay. Now, somebody is talking very loud all of a sudden here, so I'm just going to get out of the way so that we can continue the last part of this conversation, okay?
Probably thought it was super deep, and I'm guessing the dog
Hello.
It was hilarious.
Oh no, if I don't
Okay.
get off, I'm like,
So,
Yeah.
okay. So here I am at the creek, and this is my last remark about what I was saying. Isn't that gorgeous here? I just have to be careful that I don't fall in here. I like to sit here. So yeah. So the question is that I want to leave this video with is are you going to have embodied language or not? And yeah, probably not. Yeah, you're probably just going to continue with your usual disembodied language. But who knows? As Annemiek was saying, we have that hope, or we have that awareness that this is possible for us. And if it is possible for us, we are both, Annemiek and I, we are both people that have had a lot of, you could say, trauma, or a lot of problems in our lives that we have lived through or dealt with or suffered, or I don't know, we endlessly went on with it. But these problems, they are no longer there because of our embodied language. And yeah, we could not believe it ourselves, basically, that it was possible, but it is possible. And so how would you feel if you could put behind all your problems with your language? What would that be like for you? That's what I'm inviting you to. And no, this is not a religion, and I'm not a guru. I don't believe in gurus. I believe in embodied language. And it's not that I believe it. I don't need to believe it. I experience it. And you don't need to believe it either. You can feel it. Yeah. And so once you have it, you know that you have it. And if you do not know that you have it, you don't have it. Yeah. So your disembodied language is totally different. It's a big struggle, big frustration, big feelings of negativity of all sorts. Yeah, you're uncertain, you are confused, you are, I don't know, depressed, or you're upset about things. In embodied language, you don't have any of that. So now, just for a couple of seconds, I sort of stop talking, and I'm just letting you letting you look at me and just feel all the stuff that I've talked about. Everything I said is true. Everything I write is true. And if you do what I suggest, yeah, you just speak with yourself, listen to yourself. If you do that, you're going to find out. And there's only one way to get this, to have this, is to do it yourself. So, yeah, it's up to you. Almost feel like I want to go for a swim in the creek. I'll do that later. All right. Bye.